A little more than 30 years ago, on March 2nd, 1988, I snuck into the Grammy Awards at Radio City Music Hall. I sat third row behind U2 and Liza Minnelli, and I sang on stage at the finale with Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston. That evening started the night before, on March 1st, 1988, when in my apartment in New York City, with Channel 7 on the news, Tappy Phillips announced that tomorrow night was going to be the greatest night in the history of rock and roll, that all these iconic stars were going to be gathered at Radio City. And so I left my apartment with my trusted inhaler, and I went to Radio City trying to get in that night to find something that would give me credibility to get in the next night. And I approached the guard at the front door, and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm working inside." I had to go out in my car, and I grabbed my inhaler, and I showed him my asthma inhaler. I said, "I want to get back in." He said, "Come right in." So I walked around Radio City the night before Michael Jackson was on stage rehearsing, and I was looking for utensils, something to get me in the next night. First thing I found was on the floor was a business card that said Michael Huddle Hairdressers. I put it in my pocket. A little later, I found the dog chain that was broken. I put that in my pocket. And I later found out there was a production room underneath the stage. And when I made my way to the production room, there were desks and areas marked after parties, hotels, limos, planes, and in the corner was a sign that said VIP passes. I took my Michael Huddle business card out of my pocket. I approached a young girl, and I said, "Hi, how are you?" And with the broken dog chain around my neck, I said, "I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm having a problem there, giving me a hard time. My pass fell off." She said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Craig Schmell, but I work with Michael Huddle Hairdressers." She saw the business card, and she gave me a VIP pass. I took the VIP pass, I left, and I came back the next night to sing at the finale with Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston. Several years before that, I conned my way into driving in President Reagan's motorcade. And I picked the president up from JFK. I drove all over New York and actually went into the UN and had a photo shoot with President Reagan. Several years before that, I smuggled jeans into Russia. I sold those jeans for thousands of rubles. I was a capitalist king in a socialist society, walking around Russia with thousands of rubles. I marched in the May Day parade. I drank a lot of Stoli, and I even stole a Russian flag on the way out of Russia. I tell you these stories because everywhere I went, everybody patted me on my back and told me how wonderful and how amazing I was, how incredible I was. But the truth was, I wasn't incredible. I was a liar, I was a cheater, and I was a thief. And being that way led to a point that I like to describe as life had become intolerable. I wanted to live, but I didn't know how to die. I was spiraling out of control. And for you to understand how I got to that point, you need to understand where I came from. When I was young, my father was never home, and I always felt lonely. I had scars on my stomach and my eye, and I felt ugly. And I got had broken my leg, and I should have been left back in school. And I always felt stupid in school. So from a young boy, I felt ugly, I felt stupid, and I felt lonely. The problem is, that's how I felt. Feelings aren't facts, but I felt that way. And so I grew up not feeling good about me, not feeling good in the world, not feeling like I had tools to live life correctly. And so when I was 15 and 16, I discovered alcohol and I discovered drugs, which allowed me to escape. I didn't have to feel me. And when I drank and I got high, I can talk to girls. I was the life of the party. I felt secure. And living that way continued. And so sneaking into places, being in places I didn't belong. I was on Trump's yacht. I was backstage at Live Aid. These places made me feel good about myself. But the truth was, my life was spiraling out of control. Until a beautiful day in October of 1990, when there was a knock on my door at my apartment in New York City on a Saturday. And I opened the door, and it was my parents. My mom was hysterically crying, and my father looked like he had seen death. And when they came in, my mom said to me, "I love you, but I don't like you." And my father said, "I have more respect for the bum on the street corner who's wiping windows at red lights. At least he's making something of his life. You have more potential in your pinky than most people have in their entire bodies." And the next sentence was, "You have two choices, either to continue on the destructive path you're on and never call us again. You're out of my will. I never want to hear from you ever again. You're dead to me. Or come home with us, get some help, and figure out why you are the way you are." And I chose the second, and I went home, and I was introduced to a man by the name of Dr. Arthur Knauert, Dr. K for short. And this man got to know me a little, and my life changed on a day where he asked me a very simple question. He asked me, "Do you like yourself?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Really? Tell me why." And I said, "Well, I have a great apartment in the city. I have wonderful parents. I have a great job." And he said, "That's not a reason to like yourself." And he pointed to a stranger across the street and he said, "Do you see that stranger?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "What if I told you that stranger was you? And what if I told you that stranger across the street, you, is a liar, a cheat, and a thief? That when he has a job, he goes in late, leaves early, and does minimal work when he's there? What if I told you that person across the street has underachieved through college his whole life? What if I told you that person across the street, when he has a girlfriend, he has 5 on the side? That he could have been a better son, a better brother, a better man? Would you like that person?" And I said, "No." And he said, "How could you possibly like yourself? That's you." And I cried hysterically, knowing that for the first time somebody was telling me the truth. And I said, "What do I do?" And he said, "In order to build self-esteem, you must do esteemable acts." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Every day you show up and you're a man of honor, integrity, and commitment. Every day you go to work early, you stay late. You put in a full day. If you have a girlfriend, you are honorable to her and trustworthy to her. Every day you're a good son, a good friend, a good brother, a good man. You do charity and tell nobody. Every day you live the right way, you will build self-esteem." And he said, "One day, if you live that way, you're going to like yourself. And if you're lucky, You might even love yourself. And so he taught me for the first time that how you live matters. Everything you do connects. And as I started to live with a bit of self-esteem, I discovered something very simple. That my life was defined by the choices that I make. And the choices that I make were influenced by the attitudes and thoughts that I keep. Smart, disciplined attitudes and thoughts lead to wise choices. Undisciplined, unsmart thoughts and attitudes lead to poor choices. What were undisciplined thoughts and attitudes? Which was the way I used to live my life. I want what I want, and I want it now. More is better. I'll screw it up first, and I'll worry about the consequences later. Those were the attitudes and thoughts that used to lead my life and led me to make a lot of poor choices. But as I grew and I started to do esteemable acts, I also learned that easy does it. First things first. Respond to life with intellect. Don't react to life with emotion. That you never make anything better by making it worse. And when I applied these disciplined, smart attitudes to my life, I started to make really wise choices. And those choices culminated about 7 months after I met this doctor, when I went to my dad, and I went to make an amends to my dad, to tell him how sorry I was for the lies and the cheating before I had met Dr. K and before they burst into my apartment. And when I sat down at my parents' apartment to say how sorry I was, before I can finish the word sorry, my father stopped me. And I said, and I couldn't even, and he said, I don't want to hear what you have to say. Your words mean nothing to me. And I was flabbergasted. And he said, I want desperately to be judged by my intentions, but the world continues to judge me by my actions. Don't tell me what you're going to do, just do it. And he said the following. He said, great men never have to tell anybody how great they are. People just know it. And so from that day forward, I have tried to live my life correctly by being a man of honor and integrity and commitment. But it's much more than that, because everything we do in life connects. How can you be a great father if you steal from your job? Because if you get caught at your job stealing and you go away to jail, what kind of father are you if you're away from your children for 5 years? And what kind of employee can you be if you steal from your employee, if you cheat on your wife? Because if you cheat at life, you're going to cheat at your job. And what kind of friend can you be if you treat strangers poorly? If you treat people with disrespect, you're going to disrespect your friends. And so, how you live matters. Thank you.